Well, hey everyone, welcome back to Grit Daily Like a Boss. And it's not every day, well, in fact, it's been never that we've had a military veteran who's been decorated and who escaped sniper bullets on our show before, nor have we ever had anybody on our show who has led one of the largest crowdfunding campaigns on Indiegogo or been a serial entrepreneur and generated hundreds of millions of dollars from various industries. And so you're thinking, who is it that we have on our show today? Well, in fact, we have Nick Palmisciano. Hello, Nick.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, like we said, it's not every day that we've got somebody here who's had to dodge sniper bullets under an ISIS attack and then who's come back and just done incredible things as an entrepreneur. Maybe you could just spend a moment here and give folks a little bit of the background. You've got some really interesting highlights in your bio.
Yeah. I was in the military for 6 years as an infantry officer and as a ranger instructor for the end of my career. And I left the military. I went to grad school at Duke University, and then I started working for a Fortune 100 company. Did not enjoy that, not because of the company. It was actually a phenomenal company. I worked for John Deere, and just a great organization, great people. But I just didn't feel like I was doing what I was supposed to do in my life. So I started a little hobby, and that hobby was a apparel company called Ranger Up. And as part of that company, I wrote a lot of articles. I did a lot of video, and I made a film called Range 15, which was the first independent film ever to go to #1 on Amazon. And we missed out on #1 on iTunes because of Angry Birds, and I will never forgive those birds for that. But in the midst of all of that, I ended up on the ISIS kill list, which was unexpected, to say the least. An FBI agent came to my workplace, and that's not uncommon because a lot of my friends are in special operations, and they have to get security clearances all the time, and those security clearances involve interviewing anybody that knows you, and they go pretty deep. So when the FBI agent called and said, "Hey, I'm going to be at your place tomorrow," I assumed it was more of the same. And then he basically showed up and was able to show me some clear threats, with my address listed, my work address as well, my wife. That was a little bit intense. And then shortly thereafter, my business partner, Tim Kennedy, also made the ISIS kill list. So, we took it in stride. We were joking with our friends in the military community that own other businesses that, they needed to step up their game because they hadn't made the list. But yeah, it was intense. It's one thing when it's you and you're deployed or something. It's something else when, it's home and, you realize for the first time that, your family might be under the gun. So, nothing happened, a couple of, little online scares and stuff, but, that threat's largely passed. And, I went from, Ranger Up had a VC event a couple of years ago. And after about a year and a half of that, I kind of decided it was time to do something new and launched my new company, Dieseljack Media, 13 months ago. And this has been an absolute blast. It kind of combines, two things that I really love. The first is, writing and film and just doing, creative things on a daily basis. And the second is helping entrepreneurs succeed. So it's just been a real blast and exciting to do something, that's different from what I've done for such a long period of time. And it's been very well received. And I'm happy that, through the pandemic and everything, we've been able to have such crazy growth.
And one of the things when I did some research on you, the theme that kept coming through, grit. And clearly you've got to have a lot of grit. I could say you have to have something else too, but we're keeping this PG-13 on this podcast. And to go from that clear and present danger, not only when you were under attack, but bringing that to your home and then finding a way to work your way through it and come out with a successful business on the other side. That's amazing. Tremendous success there.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Now, tell me a little bit about Diesel Jack Media in the sense that you were focused in and around the whole tagline, "We don't suck." Now, that's kind of an unusual approach. And as a marketeer, I appreciate creativity, but that's kind of out there, Nick.
Yeah, that's really always been the way that I've done things. Whenever people start talking about marketing, they all use the same words. It's all jargon. It's all nonsense. It's meaningless. And then, you go to an agency and they're all using the same words and they're telling you they're going to do the same things. And you get an 83-page PowerPoint presentation. And the whole time, I've hired 5 or 6 agencies over the years and not a single one has done a great job, like not a single one. And, so you go to root cause and it's the root cause is, they don't care and, they don't have the requisite skills to actually do anything for a company that needs anything other than the most basic, marketing. So like if somebody has no advertising whatsoever and you start running ads, no matter how bad you are at it, well, I shouldn't say that. If you're really terrible, it won't matter. But, if you have some skill, then yeah, their company's going to do better. But, you actually have to have a team of people that has marketed a product that, that actually understands what makes something stand out. And, I've always looked at it like this. If you are Target or your Walmart or your Amazon, then you can be boring, right? Your marketing should be boring. It should just be, we're here for everyone. And they can do that because they have the best logistics in the game. They have the best price points in the game, free shipping, all these things. They can be generic. The rest of us, the rest of the world can't be generic. They have to stand for something. And if you stand for something, then by definition, someone is going to hate you. So that's the other thing that we tell people is we're going to make people hate you, which is another thing that probably is weird. But just not sucking at marketing, as funny as that is to some people, like just not sucking makes us better than 95% of all marketing agencies out there. There is very little creativity in most agencies. Now, that's not to say that there aren't some great ones, because there's some agencies I really respect, and certainly not sitting here saying, we're the only ones that know how to market or anything like that. But it's much more rare than you think. Our best customers, the customers that appreciate us the most, are customers that have hired other agencies. And so, it's a combination of like, hey, I was an entrepreneur, selling my own products for years. And I know what it's like to have those bad years where like money's tight and you're trying to figure out how to make payroll. You're trying to figure out how to grow. You grew and now inventory is a huge expense, and you've got to balance inventory with all the other costs. And the last thing you want to do is spend money on an agency. Like I've been that person. And, we have to be able to do that. And I don't think most agencies even think like that. They lock in a contract. It sounds very basic, and I'm sure a lot of other agencies say things that are similar, but, we do it in practice.
I get it. I really appreciate how you're out there and doing things differently. All right, let's turn around and get to some of the conversation in and around the difficulties that people face, particularly with startups and businesses. So do you think you got lucky, Nick, in the businesses that you've had, or what do you think made the difference? Because you had phenomenal success and really it doesn't sound like any failures.
I've had tons of failures. I mean, just tons. Generally when I give speeches, I talk about my failures. The overall businesses haven't failed, but I have been up against the ropes a number of times, especially with, the apparel business. And apparel is such a brutal, cutthroat business. Even from how I started the company and I was very confident. I didn't know what I didn't know. and I thought I had a great idea, and I printed 26 different styles, 144 pieces of each style, thinking this wasn't a lot. I think I spent, I don't know, 40 grand or something. And then I launched my site and I thought it was going to blow up or at least do okay. And nothing. I mean, it was brutal. I only had 2 shirts that sold really any kind of volume. And most people in that situation start feeling really sorry for themselves. I just kind of looked at it like, hey, I got 2 wins and 24 losses. So let me look at why I got wins. And so then I iterated off of the shirts that won. 4 years later, I finally sold the last of the other 24 in that first batch. But by that point, we were selling thousands of shirts a day. And so I am comfortable being wrong. And, and I just look at it like, okay, I learned a lesson. And so, as I've grown as an entrepreneur, I'm willing to fail a lot faster. I'm also willing to just admit something isn't working, not take it personally, blame myself, own the failure, and then just move on to the next thing. So, I've failed more than I've succeeded, but on a macro level, but by continuously learning, it just makes it easier to succeed because you're not as invested in every decision.
So, with the experience that you've had in combat, I'd like to make the assumption that those are probably some of the hardest days you've had. But I've learned on this show never to make assumptions because I always get surprised with the answers. So, can you tell us about more of these hard days that you've had?
Sure. Yeah. So one thing that I always, there's a lot of people that kind of build up their resume. Like I don't like to do that with my military resume. I've been shot at a few times. I did not enjoy it, but I would be lying to you if I told you that it was some major thing for me. And that's fortunate because I was never placed in some of these truly awful situations that some of my friends have been placed in. That being said, the military puts a lot of things in perspective for you. When you are in other countries, you see people that are hungry. You see people that have seen terrible things. I was in the Balkans, before 9/11 kicked off. We had peacekeeping missions in Bosnia and Kosovo and mass graves and Europeans killing each other, which is something that, no one would have expected, in that time period, and in brutal fashion, and so what that experience does is it gives you a lot of perspective when you're going through business situations. It's not life or death, it's money and pride. I mean, the worst thing that can happen to you is what, you go bankrupt, or you have to look at your friends and family and say, I failed. For me, the hardest part of business wasn't starting my company. It was taking it from a hobby to going full time. And then shortly thereafter, I got divorced. And so I was a single dad with 2 kids, and those kids were in the warehouse all the time. And that was rough because it wasn't a certain future. I didn't know that I was going to succeed. I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old that were with me all the time that were depending on me. That was hard. That was pressure. Those were the times where I think I was mentally tested. And there was actually a period of time where I had $50,000 of credit card debt. I only had $1,300 in the bank. And I told myself that if I didn't have more money in my account at the end of the next month, that I was going to go and get a second job somewhere so that I could keep, working on Ranger Up and making it work. And then the following month, and I promised myself I wouldn't look. Like I wasn't going to look at the account. I wasn't going to try to game it. And the following month I opened it up, took a big breath, and I had $1,350. And it was like one of the most emotional moments of my life. And then the next month I had $1,500. And then 15 months later, I was buying a pretty significant house in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. It went from like virtual bankruptcy to pretty significant success. But like in that moment, like I had no idea it was going to work. Like that was hard. And so, your original question, kind of like, where does that come from? For me, I love your show, and I love the idea of your show, because grit is the most important thing. I know tons of entrepreneurs. Some of them are way more successful than I am. Some of them are less successful, but we all share, the desire to like fight through anything. And so, going into entrepreneurship, it really just became like, if I take one problem at a time, I'm not the first person to do this. I won't be the last. There is a solution. I just can't let the whole thing overwhelm me, because that's how you lose.
Oh, so much in there. I have tremendous respect for the military and the foundations that they teach on a level of education and respect and building in that resilience, which is so lacking in so many of the people today, which kind of ties into the question that I want to answer, next, which is, what's your best advice, your best tip, Nick, for Generation Next?
I actually really love a lot of things about this generation. Like I'm not one of these people that, that kind of bags on, younger people. I don't think it's super worthwhile. But one thing that I've definitely noticed, because I'm now hiring people that that were born after I graduated college, which is, hurts a little bit. But this generation doesn't like the idea of having to earn respect, of having to earn status, of putting in extra work. It has been a pretty consistent thing that I've seen with this generation. And, I understand where it comes from. There's this desire for, more of a work-life balance than maybe previous generations have had. But I also think it's, the boomer generation to some extent, and older Gen X also has just given kids opportunities and tried to relieve some of the pain that maybe we went through. And I think that isn't all that valuable. I don't think that that's an extremely helpful thing. I think, and now I'm switching gears a little bit to parenting. I'm a dad of 6. I think it's really important that kids are allowed to fail and are allowed to feel failure. Not that you need to add to that. I don't believe in putting the kind of pressure on kids that some parents put, where, you have to win everything, you have to get all A's or anything of that, but I think that, they have to try things, they have to fail, they have to not get first place, they have to not be told, that they're the best when they're not, and they have to have time to learn the lessons that are really critical, or they go into life thinking that they are the absolute best, having never earned that. And then it hurts them more than it hurts other people, older people, when you are honest with them. So, I have a very military style of giving feedback. I loathe passive aggressive behavior, because I think it destroys organizations. So I'm very direct. I tell people immediately if I don't like something, not on the second time or third time, but immediately, like, private conversation, like, hey, you did this thing. I don't like it. I don't want to see it. Here's why. Tell me if I'm wrong. I'm happy to discuss this. Like, we have immediate feedback. But I also ask my employees to tell me, if you're upset with me, if you're upset with something I've done, then just tell me. I have no feelings about this. I don't take this stuff personally. I assume you're trying to do a good job. I would like you to assume I'm trying to do a good job. So let's be very direct, have a conversation, and, make this the best organization that we can. And, to that end, when somebody brings something up to me and I agree, like, hey, you know what? I didn't do this the right way. There was a better way to handle this. I will then publicly say, hey guys, I made this mistake. Here was my thinking. I'm going to try not to do that again. Here's what I'm going to do to change that. But I have watched, if I'm sitting across from somebody who's 30 and I give them direct feedback, they generally do pretty well with it. The same thing with somebody who's 23, 24, 25, and you can see them imploding. And it's only a few years, but I just think I think parents changed a little bit. I think technology changed a little bit. So, they are more wrapped up in digital relationships. Even just thinking about how, one of the hardest things to do as a teenager was asking a girl out, because sometimes it didn't go well and you had to deal with, that rejection and, you had to deal with that social pain. They text each other. It's a different thing. It's not as personal. And so when you have personal relationships, I think Generation Next is still learning how to do that.
Oh, there's so many places I could go with that. I'm just trying to bite my tongue and go, okay, on to the next thing. So if we do continue on with all of these experiences you've had, Nick, if I gave you some pixie dust and said, you got to go back in your past and you get to change one thing, what's different?
Nothing. And not because it's all been good. My failures have taught me more than any of my successes. And so I'm 44 now. I just turned 44. I'm sitting here going, like, I feel like I'm just getting started and that everything I'm doing now is the best stuff I've ever done. I feel like I'm running, my new company better than I've run any organization, in the military or in business that I've ever run. I feel like, I'm learning more right now than I have in ages. I feel like I've put together the best team that I have. I'm treating people the best way. I'm giving people the right challenges. All of that is because I have failed to do that at one time or another. And I had to learn from it and I had to feel the pain from it. So like, it kind of goes back to, what we were just talking about with this younger generation. If you don't suffer, you don't learn. Learning comes from suffering. And so, none of the suffering that I've had has been so catastrophic as to, throw my life completely off course. It hurt. It was miserable. It was very challenging, but, I'm still standing. And as a result, I'm a better leader. I'm a better business person. I'm a better father. And so, I don't want to take anything back.
Nearly every guest I have on this show says I would change nothing. And that's why I'm fascinated by the question. Now, there was a way that we could sort of in some way return the favor. Is there a way that our audience can help you, Nick?
That's an interesting question. Obviously, if you have a business that needs marketing, I'd love to talk to you, but instead, let me talk about an organization that I do some work with, and that's an organization called Warrior Rising. Warrior Rising is an organization founded by a Green Beret by the name of Jason Van Camp. And what they do is they help veterans that are coming out of the military and wanting to start businesses learn how to be entrepreneurs. They're a little different than most veteran organizations in that it's a charity, but it's a charity with a lot of strings. And I mean that in a good way. The first thing that they ask anybody to do is go through what they call Warrior Academy. And it is a crash course in entrepreneurship that takes most people 60 days to complete. There are tests, the whole nine. The goal there is first to eliminate people that don't really want to be entrepreneurs. It sounds good, but if 60 days of coursework pushes you off the path, then you probably are not going to cut it when things get real serious and there's money involved. But the second thing is, what they've essentially done is they've taken structures that the folks in the military already know, things like operations orders, which is, kind of how we give instruction on what a mission looks like. And they've translated business plans into operations orders. It's very effective because it helps entrepreneurs that have no business experience map how to run a business. And so, your audience has so many entrepreneurs, and it's not important that everybody is running, some multi-billion-dollar company. It's, some of these entrepreneurs are starting, businesses that are very important to them. There's one veteran is running a fishing charter business. Another is, building custom knives out of, he calls it war metal, he's got like vehicles from the Battle of the Bulge, and they melt down metal off of tanks that were in, World War I and II, and he turns them into knives, all the way to people that are involved in, crypto technology, biotechnology. It really spans a gamut from something that is very large and scalable, to more like mom and pop businesses that are passion projects for, individuals. All of these people need mentors. So it's not even about donations, although obviously the organization needs donations, but you have such an array of listeners that have skills and knowledge. If any of them are interested in donating their time to Warrior Rising as a mentor, I think that would go a long way. It's one of the only organizations I've ever seen successfully tackle the idea of veteran entrepreneurship. And once veterans get past Warrior Academy and they assign them a mentor, they start getting them moving in the right direction. They then put them in constant pitch competitions in front of people that want to invest in veterans. Great organization. So, if your listeners would like to do something meaningful, check out warriorrising.org and sign up to be a mentor.
Oh, I love that idea. We'll definitely put that in the notes and let people know. And as someone who spent a lot of years in North Carolina and on Duke campus, I've got to ask, did you ever eat at Cosmic Cantina?
Never sober. but many,
the burritos taste good without the booze, but that certainly adds something to it.
Yeah, many times.
Yeah, it's a fantastic place. All right, last question, of course, most important. And again, like I said earlier, I've learned to never assume anything. One male guest that I had on here, his answer was stilettos to this question. So I'm leaving it wide open, Nick. All right. If we looked in your closet and we tried to identify a shoe style that closely defined your personality, are you a boots, stilettos, sneakers, flats, or flip-flops kind of guy, or something else?
Wrestling shoes. I think there's nothing that defines my personality more than wrestling. I again, when people talk about me, when, friends, relatives, even people that, that don't like me, what is consistently said about me is that I never quit, no matter how ridiculous the situation. Like I routinely have had individuals come to me and say like, hey, if you're ever doing another thing, let me know because I want to invest in it. And I was like, why would you want to invest in something you don't even know what it is? And they're like, because no matter how dumb it is, you're never going to quit until it's successful. So, I want to invest in it. And all of that came from the wrestling mat. All of that came from grinding. All of that came from hours and hours and hours of blood, sweat, and tears and cutting weight and the discipline necessary in order to achieve the things that I wanted to achieve on the mat. So wrestling shoes.
Wow. I can say that we've never had anyone say wrestling shoes before as an answer. So you are the first. And you are exceptional. Thank you, Nick Palmisciano, for being on our show today. Thank you for your service to our country. And we really appreciate all the lessons you've shared here today about grit, resilience, just never giving up and going after it. All the best of luck to you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And how about that fantastic intro by Touch Circle?